Good afternoon. To begin, I'd like to share some words that succinctly describe Connexus from a financial perspective. Strong, sound, disciplined, profitable, member-focused, liquid, efficient. Now I'm going to spend a few minutes showing you the numbers that back up these powerful words. At the end, I have some great news to share with you about 2018. In 2017, we kicked off the biggest single investment in our history, a $20 million project called AMI, to replace every one of our meters while not disrupting or degrading the existing service to our members. We spent $13 million last year and will complete the project later this year. AMI will deliver $5 million in net present value over the next 15 years, which will be used to partially offset future rate increases. Sadly, 32 of our co-workers, our part-time meter readers, will end their careers at Connexus by the end of this summer. Several of them have been employees for over 25 years. We want to thank them for their service and for being the face of Connexus to many members each month. Like all companies, growth is critical to our success. We grow by adding new members and when existing members, especially businesses, expand and need more electric energy. In 2017, we added 1,732 new members, which, as you can see, is the most since 2007. We're on track to add even more in 2018. The growth in the new home construction market is the driver for our member growth. We need new homes in all price points in our service territory to make the growth work. However, the ongoing conservation efforts by our existing members and the loss of service territory to the Elk River Municipal Utility resulted in kilowatt-hour sales actually declining 1.8% last year. Our kilowatt-hour sales have not recovered to their prior levels since the recession. Our revenue grew slightly to $263 million. After a careful review of our costs in late 2017, we were forced to implement a small 1% rate increase for at the end of 2016, we were forced to implement a small rate increase for 2017. Our wholesale power cost is our largest single expense, and it grew slightly to $199 million. Connexus buys our power from Great River Energy and is the largest owner among 28 cooperative members. A component of our contract with Great River is that they immediately charge or credit us for monthly fluctuations in the wholesale power market. In 2017, that was a $1 million charge compared to a $2.1 million credit in 2016. For over 30 years, we've purchased power from Great River and resold it to Elk River Municipal. Our 2017 gross margin includes $1.3 million from those sales. That contract ends later this year. While those margins will disappear, the savings from our AMI project will offset the loss. Our operating expenses, what it costs us to run your cooperative, were up 1.05% to $60.5 million. Last year, our employees identified 105 cost and labor savings ideas, saving Connexus $1,490,008. We're always careful about our hiring, and labor, our biggest operating expense, actually declined slightly. But we continue to spend money where it counts. In 2017, we spent $4 million trimming the trees around our power lines to improve reliability during storms. Other non-operating income of $10.4 million is primarily our share of Great River's margins, as well as income from our tree trimming business and capital credits from our banks. When we talk about financial strength, we're talking about the $186 million that you, our members, have invested in Connexus, our patrons' equity. We're talking about the $150 million in long-term debt and the $13 million of short-term debt loaned to us by our banks at very attractive interest rates. That low-cost capital is what we use to build over 9,000 miles of distribution lines included in the $211 million of distribution plant. We have $85 million in lines of credit for our short-term needs and another $15 million in committed long-term borrowing capacity. We easily meet all the loan covenants required by our lenders. We continued our commitment to return cash back, our equity, to our members. In 2017, we returned over $7.6 million. Now, some really good news. There is a 0% rate increase for 2018. Let me say that again. Our price for energy is not changing this year. How do we do that? Well, first, we focus on the 25% of our costs that we directly control. Then we compare ourselves to electric cooperatives from across the country. We have the third most efficient distribution plant, the poles, wires, and transformers, of any cooperative in the U.S. We have the fewest number of employees per member in the state of Minnesota and the top 2% in the U.S. Our employees are really efficient. Our low operating cost per member puts us in the top 3% in the country. Going forward, we'll take advantage of the opportunities to leverage AMI data and other technology to keep our costs as low as possible. The other 75% of our costs comes from Great River. The price signals we get from Great River tell us to focus on reducing peak demand in the summer months of June, July, and August. Greg will tell you more about what Conexus and our members are doing to reduce our peak demand with Wi-Fi thermostats, peak time rebates, and our utility-scale solar and storage investments. Here's why that focus is so important. We pay more per kilowatt hour than any other cooperative at Great River, 12% above the Great River average, and higher than any other of the 43 cooperatives in Minnesota. We have the 18th highest rate for wholesale power out of 807 cooperatives in the country. We're making these investments in new technologies not because they look cool, which they do, or are industry leading, which they are, but because they are sound and disciplined financial decisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our President and CEO, Greg Ritterbusch. He's going to give you his CEO's report. And I'd like to say, this man is really leading this country on greatly. Greg?
I am nursing a cold, so forgive if it reappears. Well, thank you. While Renaissance may overstate a bit the electric industry in its evolution today, for utilities that engage, the future is a picture being painted today. Yet the really good things about being a member cooperative persevere. At this meeting, we reflect a bit on our 80-year heritage, recount 2017 accomplishments, and point to a future where members have options to be served your way. Let me recognize our executive team, whose leadership and tenacity is critical to our success serving you. Mike Bash, CFO. Brian Brandt, VP Power Supply and Business Development. Don Holler, VP Member Services, Products and Sales. Pete Miller, VP Human Resources, and Matt Weiseth, VP Electric Operations. These guys are great. Attributed to Confucius, bet you didn't expect that today. Study the past if you would define the future. We spent some time recapturing our heritage this year. Our employees installed the Heritage Atrium, completed last week, and normally it's a secure area of the company. The historical items on display are worth a look before leaving today. It reminds us daily of our roots. Organized for funding in 1937, our cooperative traces back to when 13 members funded $2 each to form the Anoka Cooperative Electric Association, one of our 4 names over the life. The seeds of local democratic control were sown then. The original bank book record shown here was found, and it's on display out there. It's a really unassuming historical treasure if you have a chance to see it. Washington, D.C. controlled everything in the early days. A federal guidebook also on display specified exactly what to do. Someone like me had I didn't have to worry about it, just follow the book. Resumes of new hires went to DC for approval. Office locations were approved and reviewed by DC. During World War II, new service applications were submitted to the War Department for approval. Copper was in short supply, of course. Technology has always been a thread. We have documentation of an early board meeting that had a cooking demonstration where dinner could be made in 1 hour with electricity. Billing motivated the first mainframe computers, in our case, a spare UNIVAC. We purchased power starting in the 1960s from an atomic reactor in Elk River, since removed. Complaining about wholesale power costs go way back. Initially purchased from Northern States Power for 1 cent a kilowatt hour, in 1939, NSP raised the price to 1.6, a 60% increase. Contrary to popular belief, 1939 was the first public use of the term, "you're fired." Minnesota co-ops formed the Rural Cooperative Power Association, a predecessor to what has become Great River Energy today. As I turn to 2017 highlights, what perseveres from our heritage is important: local democracy, technology leadership, reliability, community. So going from the past to reporting on 2017, electric operations had a busy year building, restoring, maintaining, fixing. As our members have come to expect, despite an active season for storms, reliability remains among the best nationwide. Top 5% for shortest duration, top 5% for lowest frequency. Members now experience, on average, an outage about once every 2.4 years. When outages occur, our linemen, on average, arrive at a job site 27 minutes from when they accept a job on their truck computer. Just think about that. Our reliability excellence is the result of sustained maintenance and investment into our infrastructure. We are consistently testing and on a targeted basis replacing poles and cable. New service growth and local economic strength are a good thing driving activity. We had 20% more new services installed over the prior year, and I'll tell you what, our engineers upstairs are like a beehive of activity with all the design work that's underway. We cleared 232 miles of vegetation, but we do always empathize with members that are impacted. Expect vegetation maintenance to be done once every 5 years on suburban circuits. So we had 3 major storms in 2017. One of the worst occurred in March. On March 6th, the tornado touched down in the Zimmerman area, followed by 2 days of high winds and gusts. 4,800 members lost power at some point during the storm. A total of 39 poles were replaced. Utilities come to each other's aid in challenging times. In addition to deploying 37 Connexus linemen, we had assistance from Dakota Electric. Thanks, Greg. Elk River Municipal, Wright-Hennepin, Anoka Municipal, a total of 21 additional linemen and their equipment was brought to our aid. A testament to the professionalism and commitment of all linemen, it took a little over 2 days. When you think about that storm, that's just some of the images before service to be restored. When you witness the devastation on our members' homes and lives, you cannot help but be moved. Operationally, tragedy hit Connexus twice in 2017. During storm restorations on June 11, we had an electrical contact by one of our linemen. It was on the west side of our system, north of Becker. Providence smiled upon Matt Stokowski that day. He was medevaced to the Hennepin County Medical Center, and the burn unit there, and I visited, it's world class. Happily, he's back to work today. Our staff and leadership have comprehensively reviewed our approach to safety and together have implemented a number of actions. Then on October 17, a personal plane flying below FAA required minimum altitude above the Mississippi River struck and brought down our lines crossing the river, actually just a little south of here. Tragically, the pilot and the spouse perished. The crossing itself, though, is a critical backup link for reliability of supply to our members in Dayton and Champlin, and it had to be rebuilt. Design, permits, procurement, installation took only 4 months, and the rebuilt crossing was energized on February 23rd. Let's turn to member services. They had a strong 17 performance. Every employee at Connexus serves members, not just the contact center metering billing. J.D. Power surveys our members and gives us a quarterly and annual report on how we're doing. From the results, we get actionable feedback for process improvement. Of the 34 utilities in the Midwest that have a size of at least 100,000 residential meters, we ranked number 4. Ahead of, I'm going to smile at this, a big local investor-owned utility. Guess who that is? In our latest ranking, 62% of those surveyed said they had perfect power. And what that means is they had no recollection of an outage. That's 22% higher than the Midwest average for all those utilities. One surprise, though, was low member familiarity with efficiency programs. Given the importance of managing our wholesale power costs, it's an area of focus. About half our members now have online reports. That's great. 45,000 are e-billing. While we will continue to bill our members the way you want, every e-billed account saves $4.40 per year, and it adds up. We are passionate about saving cost. We invested $400,000 in scholarships and charitable donations last year. Always community-driven, we provided a separate report in your packet on our giving programs. So, for my next 3 topics, as the energy market evolves, I'm going to highlight how Connexus is opening up choices for our members, and the theme is Your Way. First, as Mike indicated, our AMI project is going well. We're running below budget and on schedule. Targeted for summer completion, all residential meters will be replaced. A very small number of members have opted out, which means that they choose to pay a monthly fee that recovers the cost of physically reading their meters. And remember, while we're progressively replacing meters, we still need to render monthly bills to run the business. It requires detailed coordination and scheduling as the remainder of our meter reader employees read the remainder of the old style meters. We never, as Mike indicated, forget to thank and appreciate the commitment of our meter reader employees as their role transitions away this year. There are new things that you can do your way. For those interested, you can access your usage online and can see what you used yesterday. If you're wondering, given recent news, your account and usage information is private, period. Let's say you're traveling, storm rolls through, you know back home, storm's coming through, and you're wondering, with a freezer full of game, is my power on? Well, you can call Connexus Member Service. We send an electronic ping to the meter. We're already doing this nowadays. It's an electronic question, are you on? In a minute, we have your answer. You have another option your way. You can sign up for outage alerts and automate your notifications. We know when your power is out now before you call us. Second, we're focused on reducing our peak during the hottest 3 summer months. Our wholesale power cost during the peak hour in June, July, August is about $25 per kWh, compared to 5 cents in the rest of the hours. That huge cost differential is what drives us to action. There are things like grid scale solar and storage that we're doing that at the system level that can save the entire membership costs. I'll talk about that next. There are also things that members can do your way. Last year we launched the Wi-Fi thermostat program. Those thermostats are a smarter, more flexible way to control your AC costs. Once enrolled, during those most expensive hours, you enable Connexus to control your AC. But it's smarter nowadays. We pre-cool your home a few degrees before a control event to make coasting through it more comfortable during the event. If it inconveniently occurred during a graduation party, something like that, you walk over to your thermostat, you hit an electronic button, and you're opted out. But you do not lose credit for the month. It's friendlier efficiency and savings, and it's being done your way. Those that are using it love it. Something new. We are piloting this summer something called Peak Time Rebate to 400 members. We haven't filled up the pilot yet, so if you have an interest and you hear this, go online. We may offer all members this year based on our results. We send by text or email a message asking that you reduce during specific hours tomorrow. When you do, we pay you for every kilowatt hour saved. You choose whether to participate for up to 9 events during those 3 months. You choose what to conserve. You may not want to do your AC. You may want to delay your laundry. You may want to stop baking a cake you're going to do that. You may want to turn off the several TVs that are going and just use one. We ask that you consider these products to control your use and save. But as always, it's your way, your choice. But did I mention, we're passionate about saving our membership costs. And third, let's get back to renewables. They have matured and are economic today as mainstream generation resources. They offset conventional generation. Some members have been early adopters and have had solar or wind on their home or business for years. As prices dropped, Conexus innovated with the solar array here in Ramsey. It's a picture here. It's a 2014 early example of community solar. Members can purchase panels or take monthly pay-as-you-go. Electric supply today is already in excess of 20% carbon-free. A lot of people aren't aware of that. They think they need to put solar out there in order to get carbon-free electricity. It's already 20%. You can do more, of course, as DIY, or with our other options, your way. But prices have continued to drop, and now including battery storage, Conexus is innovating again in 2018. We're going to be installing grid-scale solar and storage in 2 locations, totaling about 60 acres. The solar will save us some money. But more importantly, the batteries allow us to time shift the use of that stored solar energy to when it has more value, like during a peak. While all of this will be unnoticeable to members, it is a milestone project setting a regional precedent to better integrate and gain more value from renewable resources. Watch our news in early fall. If you'd like to see the project, when we commission it and bring it into commercial service, we'll let you know. Members are welcome to attend the celebration. All right, now watch for it. There's our bee. Last year, we gained national attention, funny enough, for the placement of 14 beehives because we planted our solar garden here in pollinator habitat, which is super important nowadays. Our partners were Bolton Bees of St. Paul, phenomenal couple, and they put their hives within the fence line of the solar array. Those happy bees produced a bumper crop of honey, and those that received jars are pretty happy about it. And the bees themselves, though, will be back in 2018 to our array here in Ramsey. Watch our website or Twitter for a solar garden tour event that you and your kids may really enjoy. So let me bring this home on this last slide. Cooperatives have lighted homes, farms, and businesses for 80 years because the business model has been successfully sustained. It is member-owned and democratically controlled. It's your co-op. We have a long heritage of service excellence. It is the only reason we exist. While our model is a powerful one, the world moves on. In the evolving energy market, your electric cooperative is innovating and leading, and year on year increasing your options to do things your way. I hope you heard some of those this afternoon. There are a lot of good things happening at Conexus Energy, but let me close by recognizing those who make it happen, all of our employees, many of whom are also members. They are dedicated, they're excellent at their jobs, they're community-minded, and I'll tell you, they're just great people. Our 2017 performance is their collective performance in service of the membership. As CEO, I have the good fortune of working with them every single day. That concludes management's report. Okay. Thank you. So we're ready to collect question cards. And if you have a question you've written on the card, you can hold it up and we'll collect them at this time. We will address as many of the questions that are submitted by members, and actually for those that are online watching this, they also have an electronic way of sending a question. At the conclusion of the reports, we will answer the questions at the end of the meeting. And then, to the extent that we don't get them all done, or if you have additional questions, leadership will stay after the meeting adjourns, and we'll stay up here and be happy to interact with any of you on anything. Okay, everyone get their card if you wanted to send one? Okay. We have a special guest as keynote speaker this year, Ms. Ellen Anderson. Ellen is the Executive Director of the University of Minnesota's Energy Transition Lab. The ETL focuses on energy storage thought leadership, energy and climate planning, energy justice, grid modernization, and they lead the Minnesota Energy Storage Alliance. She is also a professor of law, energy, and sustainability at the U. She has previously served as senior advisor on energy and the environment to Governor Dayton and served as chairperson at the Public Utilities Commission. She served in the Minnesota Senate from 1993 to 2011, and her career contributions to Minnesota are absolutely numerous. As we have developed the Connexus approach to renewables and distributed resources like storage, we've been collaborating with stakeholders that have vision. At the ETL, we find policy, technology, and business leaders that are working together. Ellen and her folks are a breath of fresh air. Do you like that little pun there, Ellen? Yeah, okay. The informed perspective is how do we use these new tools to benefit members and society at large. It is really my heartfelt honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Ellen Anderson.
Yes, I know. Thank you for being considerate about that. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate those great comments, and I'm delighted to have been invited here tonight. Thank you for including me in your annual meeting. And I have to mention, it's very fun to see two of my former legislative colleagues here, Kathy Tingelstad and Betsy Wergen, who served with me in the legislature. So it's great to be here. It's such a privilege to be working over the last year or two with Greg Ritterbush and with Brian Burant, in particular on energy storage topics. And my program at the Energy Transition Lab at the University of Minnesota is all about working in collaboration with people across sectors, many external stakeholders, and also many university experts. And we all bring them all together to try to figure out our mission, which is to analyze how our energy system is transitioning and how that is unfolding, understand how policies and markets and technology are evolving, things like energy storage, and to share knowledge and to try to support and enable progress, especially for our state and region, to try to advance our state's energy system and make Minnesota a real model for a resilient, clean energy economy. So I wanted to, I just have a very few slides, and it's funny because this is the one I want to show you first, is one, I didn't just pull this up for this meeting. I use this in almost every talk I ever give, and I always use it with my students in particular, or when I talk about energy transition more broadly. And so I give a lot of talks and say, what do we mean by energy transition? And so I want to talk just for a few minutes about that. And I love this slide because it really does tell that story that you were hearing from your CEO. It's only a lifetime ago, one lifetime ago, that we were getting electricity for the first time across rural America. And I love the look of wonder in these children's eyes. This is a schoolhouse classroom in North Dakota in 1934, getting their very first electric light bulb. And I know the really important role that rural electric cooperatives played in making that happen and in making sure that all of America was electrified. So to start talking about the energy transition, you have to acknowledge that we have this legacy electricity system, and it's really served us well, and it's enabled a really great quality of life. But it's going through a massive evolution, a massive change, some would say a revolution, from that system that Thomas Edison started back in the late 1800s. So obviously the traditional model we all recognize, large central station power plants, mostly fossil fuel generating systems that send power one way through wires, often long distances to customers. And our new evolving energy system is going to look a lot different. And we're still going to have big connected grids and big power plants for a very long time. But we're adding to that a lot more renewable energy. It's going to be, and it is, broadly distributed across many owners, many participants, and many geographies. It will be lower carbon, and Greg mentioned that it's already reducing carbon. It's going to be digitally controlled, and you heard a lot about how those kinds of technologies are changing the ability to work with your customers. And there's more customer awareness and participation that's coming out of this energy transition. So I swear we didn't coordinate our comments, but they are quite well aligned. So I want to give you kind of my top 10 factors for what's driving this change. Real quick, I'll go through my list. First of all, we have state policies, and I have to start there because that's kind of where I spent 18 years of my life in passing some of our energy laws, like our renewable energy requirements, our renewable energy standard that really helped to build out renewable energy. And we're one of the states that included, like it or not, all the utilities and municipals along with the IOUs in those requirements. And everybody has performed extremely well. And I'm really proud to say we've met that 25% renewable energy requirement in our state just this year, 7 years ahead of schedule. That's really impressive. And we've done it with low cost because one of the other big drivers of change is that the costs of renewable energy, as Greg also mentioned, are dropping dramatically. First with wind, now with solar, and now battery storage is following a very similar trajectory. It still has a ways to go to be as cheap as we would like it, to be able to deploy it everywhere that it could be useful. But the trajectory looks very similar to what you've seen and the projections for the next few years with renewable energy price reductions. So we've had sort of this convergence of cheaper prices, bigger economies of scale, and improving technology. And we've also had a lot of changes to that conventional fleet across the United States. Now, I'm sure you know this, that even as federal policies are eliminating regulatory pushes like the Clean Power Plant, coal plants are being retired across the country. More than 250 of them have retired since 2010, and it's primarily for economic reasons. And it's just difficult for them to compete in a world with high efficiency, increased renewables, and very low-cost natural gas. So we have more distributed energy systems, and we have something called prosumers now. I think that term came from Germany, but it's widely used now everywhere, that you can both be a consumer of electricity and a producer at the same time. And that digital technology means two-way communications and control systems that are going to enable customers to participate more fully if they want to in their energy choices and use and to manage their energy use. We also have a global consensus. Even though you might not hear that in the United States political debates, there is a global consensus that we have to cut carbon emissions, and that we've also experienced extreme weather events and increased need for resilient power systems. And finally, a strong trend towards electrification. And I saw that when I went to try to plug in my new Volt into your charging station and realized there's a lot of demand for those charging stations already. So thanks for having those. But you need some more fast chargers. So all of these factors together are really, and many others that I didn't even mention, they're driving market disruption. And I like to talk about market disruption as a factor that I love this illustration that just sort of tells the story. And if you've never seen these photos, they're a little distant, but I'll just show you that on the left and the right, what you're seeing in both of these photos is Fifth Avenue, New York City, Easter Sunday. And on the left side, it's the year 1900. And on the right side, it's a mere 15 years later. The difference in these photos, on the left, you have to look really, really hard to find the one car. On the right photo, 15 years later, you have to look really, really hard to find the one horse. And that just tells you a story. And that sort of fast-moving disruption and evolution is exactly what I have experienced in all my years of working on energy. And my example that I like to share is that it was only 15 or 20 years ago at the state capitol where many, many experts said that the highest amount of renewable energy we could ever accommodate into our electricity system was, what do you think, 1% or 3%? That's what we thought. And so our utility operators, our grid operators, our utilities have figured out how to manage these really unimaginable levels of renewable energy in a very short period of time, and lots of other changes happening. So what this means, what does this big evolution mean? It raises some big challenges. One of them is technological innovation. We really have to figure out how to manage a different kind of grid. We need it to be much more flexible to deal with all those variable sources of energy that are being added on. And energy storage is one of those pieces of technologies, advanced energy storage, that we have to figure out how to use it in a way that serves our system as well as possible. And that's what a great deal of our work has been about in the last couple of years, trying to figure that out and share that learning. And Connexus's project is a fantastic example of using storage combined with renewable energy to cut peak demand and save customers money. Another piece of this big sort of disruption and change is that it creates a lot of opportunity. So I just want to point out that Minnesota has been a real leader in developing jobs in this clean energy ecosystem, which is very broadly covers a lot of different parts of that equation of energy, everything from energy efficiency to renewables to storage. And we have a heck of a lot of jobs that have been created, and that sector of the economy is growing faster than most other sectors of the economy, even through the recession years, and the wages are higher. So you already know that, you all work for a utility, or no, you don't all work for a utility, you're all part of a utility, you're members. Some of you work for the utility, but you all have kids, a lot of you, or kids in college, or nieces and nephews, or others. Tell them, I tell my students that that are working on energy, and we work with students like those different sectors we work with that are in technology or in policy and law or in economics, because they're all part of figuring out our new energy system and how it's going to be optimized and developed most in the very best way possible. And I tell them, you are going to shape the future. It's happening right now, and you have this really exciting opportunity. So that's what I think about Connexus too. So I'm just delighted to be here because it's been so fun to work with Connexus and to watch the evolution of this solar plus storage project. And I have to tell you, you guys are pretty humble about it, but this is a nation-leading project. It's one of its kind. It's first in its class. You guys are going to be national models. You're going to have people coming from all over the country to look at this project that an electric co-op has done and how it's being used, pollinator habitat and all, to reduce peak demand, to save money for customers, reduce carbon. It is going to be the largest storage project in Minnesota, and very unique and one of the biggest in the region. So really what I would encourage you to do is to not stop. Don't stop innovating. Keep doing what you're doing and do more, because you're establishing yourselves, like it or not, you're in a leadership position in this evolving energy evolution that we're living through, this energy transition. And you've demonstrated a really important role that electric co-ops can provide and serve in this changing system, because you can be more nimble than some of those big investor-owned utilities that have to go through those long regulatory processes. You're closer to customers and to your local communities. And you are showing that you can do good and do well, one of my favorite slogans, by benefiting members and benefiting society. So I'm really proud of Connexus and really proud to be working with you on this project. And really delighted that we're going to have a continuing partnership. So one of the things we like to do at the University of Minnesota is figure out how to kind of open those doors to university expertise and partner with the community. And we are going to be putting together research teams and collaborators that are going to work on many of the issues that Connexus has raised and sort of experienced during this process. And as you go forward with this innovative new project, we're going to do a lot of work on trying to analyze that and see how we can all learn from this experience and share that learning more broadly across the university and to stakeholders around the state. And we're delighted that Greg Ritterbusch will also be participating in our Germany Energy Policy Exchange. That's a long-standing partnership that has enabled a lot of Minnesotans and a lot of Germans to learn from each other about the future energy system and how we can sort of get best practices from each other. So this is exciting, and I can't wait for the celebration of that new project. I definitely want to be there and bring on the solar honey. Can't wait to try it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ellen. Those are insightful words. We know that. We know that you're working very well with us. And it's taking time to join us here this afternoon at our annual meeting. Thank you. But we're not going to let you get away yet. We have to show a little appreciation. And we've got it here. And since you know, we raise a lot of honey around here. Here is a basket for you. It's got honey and a cup. So everybody's been talking about the co-op. I guess I'm going to go back in time. Now, some of you here, I'm just going to reflect that you heard Greg talk about the new energy future your way. We wouldn't be looking at this new energy future at all if it wasn't for our past. Think about that. Our rich heritage brought us to this point where we are today. That's why I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking and reflecting about our cooperative during the past 80 years. Most of you here, no, not all of you, but most of you here were not around back in the 30s and 40s. Never had to live your life without electricity. But back then, electricity was a big deal, especially on the farms, and there was no your way 80 years ago. There was only one way 80 years ago. Nearly 90% of our rural ancestors were living in the dark, forced to rely on ice boxes to cool food, kerosene lamps for lighting, how about wood stoves for cooking, and fetching water from wells. The reason? As it was mentioned earlier, big investor-owned utilities said, hey, there's no money to be made on those people, so we're not going to extend our power lines out to the country, to towns, and to farms. No one else was up for this challenge, but Connexus Energy's founding members, folks like you and me, took it on, formed our electric cooperative. It was March 10th, 1937, that our cooperative began. Back then it was called Anoka County Cooperative Light and Power Association. Boy, that's a long handle, but more than 400 Anoka County residents paid their $2 membership fee. Harry Edmonds, a well-known local farmer from Cedar, was elected president. Think of this now. The directors applied for a $160,000 loan to build almost 200 miles of distribution line and a substation, think of this, at 7th Avenue and Grant Street in Anoka. Many of the members had already agreed to dig holes for the distribution poles. Co-op members paid a minimum of $3.50 a month for 40 kilowatt hours of electricity, which was enough to light an average home and operate several appliances, like a washing machine, maybe an iron, a radio, or a water pump. But for $6 a month, you could purchase 100 kilowatts, and this would allow you to operate another appliance, a refrigerator. No more ice. Back then, a home that used 100 kilowatt hours of electricity used a lot of power. Today, the average home uses 10 times that amount. There are no AMI meters. Members read their own meters, wrote the information down on a card, mailed it to the cooperative, then the co-op would go through, check it, and send you a bill, and then you would either mail a check or come in yourself to the co-op to pay your bill. Very few choices back then, not like today. So many ways you can pay your bill. My first memory of our cooperative takes me back to 1947, when my folks moved from Minneapolis to a 40-acre farm in Ham Lake. I recall my mother wasn't very happy at all moving from the big city to the country. While the farm already had electricity when we moved there, I remember the power was going out all the time. Every time a black cloud went over, I'll swear our power went out. At least it seemed that way. But that wasn't the equipment or the time workers could get the power back quickly. In those early days, outage would last typically for days. We didn't have the people. It wasn't until the 50s when the area started growing. More people started moving out from the cities, and the cooperative could finally afford to hire more staff and buy more equipment. That's when reliability really started improving. Today, I'm happy to say our reliability record is among the very best in the USA, not just Minnesota, United States. When I said we had electricity at my folks' home, that didn't mean what you think it does. Basically, it meant we had a few light bulbs strung in the house. We did have a refrigerator, but those were the days of no inside plumbing. That's why my mother was unhappy. And I also remember that we had hand pumps on the sink to get our water, and we had crank telephones, which had 12 people on the party line. So if you called somebody, you could guarantee that 12 of your neighbors are going to listen to everything you say, because that's the way it was back then. My mother did not have any of these appliances until that came later. Speaking of appliances, now let's go back to the 60s. The cooperative had a home economist on the staff. Her job was to teach the homemakers how to use all this new electric equipment that was coming out. Things like an electric stove, toaster ovens, washers, and a dryer. The home economist held classes at our demonstration kitchen at the co-op, and she'd go out and speak to a lot of people, and she was very popular to spread the word for the benefits of electricity. Long before I joined the board, I would attend every annual meeting because my wife, Marion, worked for Anoka Electric. That was in the 50s. We became a member of this cooperative in 1957 when we built our home, the same home we live in today. We've never moved. That's a long time. But thank my wife, because she's put up with me that many years. At the time, I had no idea that decades later I would be joining the board. And when I started, turn it over, we had about 40,000 members, maybe about 30 employees. I can honestly say the board has always looked after the members' interest right from the start. The board has been a voice for our members. We listen to you. Today, your board is involved in the governance of the cooperative. We set the policies and strategic direction of Connexus Energy. We also lobby our legislators on the cooperative's behalf. Basically, we are all spokespeople for the cooperative in our community, building relationships with our members. In closing, and as more things change, the more they stay the same. All of us at Connexus Energy, from the board to our leadership team to our 230 employees, we are all committed to providing you with reliable power, affordable rates, and outstanding member satisfaction. That was important to our members 80 years ago, and it is equally important to every one of you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for your questions. I'll combine some similar questions on the same topics for the meeting today. I'm going to try to get through all of them. Not about 8 cards here, but I think we can do it. And if these questions, something else occurs to you, you want to talk to staff afterwards, after the meeting adjourns, all the senior staff will stay up here and address any of your questions. So let me go through. Is Connexus considering an increase in the monthly fees to home producers, those that are doing solar or wind themselves? Easy? No. As co-ops move under the authority of the PUC, move from under the authority of the PUC, what changes are expected? Well, cooperatives, there's only one in the state. It happens to be Dakota that's under a PUC rate, something that their members chose to do. But the PUC, there's the resource plans that are filed there, and the PUC did review the net metering, the way we're calculating what we charge for members that are doing net metering or have their own solar. But that's really it. And so that's the answer to that question. Please address the use of members' usage data with new meters, how it will be used, could use, or misused. And that's why I made that comment during my presentation. I knew that was out there, just given what's been going on. Only members will have access to their information. Those meters themselves are secure and scrambled or link on our network. Sorry, Mike. The encrypted. Thank you. That's the right word. And so the information is something that is maintained private. There's high levels of data security. The data is partitioned in business models behind firewalls, and the information is not anything that we use and put out for anyone's availability. So if you have concern, please keep talking with us, but it is private to our membership. What's going to happen to those meter readers that are losing their jobs? Gotta feel bad for them. I do. Smiley face with a frown. All right, absolutely. You know, early on when we did this project, we asked our board and we got support for severance payments and training support. And when we found openings during the course of our long meter replacement program, those readers were put in for those jobs. So several did get jobs, all are getting severance, and we have been extremely open right from the very beginning. So they've known about it for a couple of years. It was the right thing to do, and they are phenomenal people. They have stuck with us, and they're reading meters today. So we can't thank them enough for saying enough good things about our meter readers. So for whoever asked the question, thank you for your care and concern. Why is our wholesale power cost higher than average, and why is it cost higher in 18 out of 807? So there's a lot of reasons. One of the things, and the things we're encouraging our members to do, is when you're a substantially high residential system, you tend to have higher peaks in the summertime, and we can do things about that. So some of the things that you're hearing us offer as opportunities is addressing that. And then with respect to Great River Energy, we have board members on their board, and I interact with their management quite frequently. We have monthly meetings with them. And so there's an awful lot of work going on at the power supply level to work on their rates and making sure they're meeting our needs as a system. So it's something that is a continuing issue that we work on, but what we want to do is make sure we're doing our job here at home and managing our peak as best we can. And I think GRE will take care of their job at their level. Okay, how many executives, board members, and employees drive EVs? Seems like an easy way to grow load and lead by example. We have 3. We have looked, when you see us out in the community, we're driving around in our line trucks and all that. Those vehicle sizes are not yet ready for EVs. And then we think about employee safety in the wintertime, and meter readers are out. So we're getting close to them being prime time for commercial. Not quite. But we have members that are showing a lot of leadership, and we have employees. In fact, little known here, to encourage employees to look at EVs, they can come here and plug in and charge. And to encourage adoption of technology for our employees to gain experience with it, we allow them to do that for free. And so an EV itself is like 4/10 of a home. So it's a very important opportunity. I actually see one member here, I won't call him out, that has 2 EVs in his garage, and probably one of the greenest and most, from a leadership standpoint, members that we have in the residential area. So it is no doubt an opportunity. It's something that we are planning for. If all of a sudden in a neighborhood everyone got an EV, if that happened overnight, it stresses the transformers and distribution, but it's not going to happen overnight. So it's something that we work on. Our engineers are aware of it. We're developing experience. That's the answer to that. Thank you for the question on EVs. So this is around some renewable questions. We donate $5 on our monthly bill for wind. How is that money used? So our system doesn't have wind. Wind tends to be in areas in North Dakota, east side of South Dakota, and Great River Energy procures wind for all of its members and makes that wind available if members would like to subscribe and contribute to it, given this fee. And essentially it's transacted by what's called renewable energy credits. Let me not go there in terms of those details, but our staff are here and they know all about them. So it's used by RECs to make sure that what you're paying for is what you're getting. And that's just the system, the way that works. What percentage of electricity from GRE comes from wind or solar? Right on 17–18% today. When you hear numbers at 20% carbon-free, you start asking whether or not that includes hydro. So it just depends on what you put in the numbers. But Ellen is right. The numbers are going up dramatically. And with the cost of renewables, what they are, you just don't look at conventional plant anymore. And so Great River, as an example, just added to its portfolio to be built in the next year or so 300 megawatts more wind because it is cheaper than anything else they can do. What are the plans to expand that? Well, I just mentioned Great River itself has a higher position in renewables, and we are adding solar. And I mentioned the fact that we're adding 10 megawatts of solar. That won't be our last edition of solar. And for those that might have a concern, because a lot of times in the past we thought, man, you're going to add solar, it's going to drive our costs up. You don't. Today, when you build solar at scale, not put it on a rooftop, put it on your house, it's still going to be relatively high on a unit basis. It doesn't mean you still don't want to do that. But when we can put it in at a megawatt scale, acres at a time, we can get it for less than the average cost of electricity. So that we're going to continue to add as we can, only when it saves our membership money. Finally, how does Connexus Energy, what do you do to help local community organizations, nonprofit groups in terms of donations? I mentioned in my report, last year was right around 400,000. We have a lot of scholarships that we do at high schools. We have a program going on right now through Twitter that members that are on Twitter can suggest charitable causes, and it's once a quarter that we pick one, or once a month? Once a month. Members suggest to us 501c3s, and then we end up having it voted through Twitter, and we select one and donate. So we have a lot of ways that we contribute to the community, all focused here in the Upper Metro. So in your packet you have the community report, and you can see more details there. Okay, that concludes the question cards. I may have said some things that opened up other questions, so after we're done, our staff will be here, and we'd be really pleased to talk to you about anything on these matters or anything else.